Okay, so today we're looking at something pretty heavy. You've shared this police body cam transcript with us.
Yeah, it's really quite harrowing. It documents a traffic stop that, well, it ends in tragedy, a fatal crash.
Right. And that's what we're going to dive into today. We want to unpack this sequence of events, look at the decisions made along the way, the really critical moment.
And the legal fallout afterwards, it's all
Yeah.
there in the source material.
Exactly. Our main source is that transcript you provided, the body cam footage transcription, and there's some commentary with it too, which we'll touch on.
It really gives you a raw look at how fast things can change. You know, what starts as maybe routine, it just unravels. It's a stark reminder, really.
Definitely. So let's start where it began, the initial stop. The officer pulled the car over because it was being driven erratically. Is that right?
That's the initial reason, yeah, erratic driving. And even before the main interaction, there are little signs the driver didn't pull over immediately. That hesitation, sometimes, that can be an indicator for an officer.
Mm-hmm. And then the officer approaches the car.
Yeah.
What's the first thing noted?
Well, the officer mentions a really strong smell of cologne coming from the car.
Okay, cologne.
Yeah, and the commentary piece we have from someone identified as John, who sounds like law enforcement, he points out that's actually a pretty common tactic. People use it to try and mask, other odors, like alcohol.
Gotcha. So potential red flag number 2, maybe?
Yep.
And who was in the car? It wasn't just the driver.
No, and this is really crucial. His girlfriend was in the passenger seat, and his 2 young children were in the back.
Wow. Okay. With the kids there.
Yeah, his whole family. The transcript shows the driver initially seems, well, maybe cooperative. A bit apologetic, says he can't find his wallet right away.
But the interaction shifts when the officer asks for ID, right?
It does, because the driver doesn't hand over a driver's license.
What does he provide?
A military ID.
Okay, so not proof he's licensed to drive that vehicle.
Exactly. That's a major flag for the officer. Is this person legally allowed to be driving? It raises immediate questions.
And this seems to be where things really start to escalate. The officer asks him to turn the car off.
Yes. And he does, initially. He turns the engine off. But then, almost immediately, he just restarts it.
He just turns it back on?
Turns it back on. It's a clear act of defiance, right after being told to switch it off.
And what's striking, you mentioned, is how he seemed while doing this.
The transcript suggests he was quite calm about it, just restarts the car and begins to drive away. But think about the reality of that moment. He's fleeing from the police.
With his girlfriend and 2 little kids in the car.
Precisely. He's putting them in immediate, incredible danger. It seems like maybe a small action initially, just restarting the car, but it's the decision that sets everything else in motion. Defying that command just changes everything.
And it wasn't like he just slowly pulled away and they let him go. There was a pursuit.
A police pursuit, yes. And the transcript gets even more terrifying here. It mentions he was driving blacked out.
Meaning?
No headlights on the freeway, at night.
Oh my God. No lights on the freeway.
The risk level is just astronomical. For him, for his family, for every single other person on that road. It's an unbelievable decision. Total disregard for safety.
And that pursuit?
Yeah.
It ends with a crash. The officers find the wreck. What does the transcript describe? What did they see?
It's pretty stark. They find a Jeep Cherokee, significant damage to the front end, particularly the driver's side.
Okay.
And the adult female passenger, his girlfriend, she had been ejected from the vehicle.
Ejected. Which usually means?
Usually indicates a very forceful impact, and often that the person wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
The scene sounds completely chaotic. Officers arriving, finding the driver. What was he doing?
He was actually holding one of his children when the first officers got there.
Holding his child amidst the wreckage.
Yes. And what's really disturbing, and the commentary from John highlights this too, is the suspect's apparent attitude.
How so?
He seemed to show no remorse. He was even hostile towards the officers. And this is while they are literally trying to perform CPR on his girlfriend right there at the scene.
Hostile while they're trying to save her life?
Yeah. It's quite chilling. That detail gives you a really unsettling picture of his mindset right after the crash.
So the immediate focus then was rescue, getting everyone out, the children.
They needed to extract everyone, yes. The children, thankfully, the initial report was that they seemed okay, physically unharmed apparently, and they were talking.
That's something at least.
Yeah.
A small mercy in all this.
A very small one, because the girlfriend's injuries were catastrophic. 2 broken legs, a possible head injury. She was bleeding. It was very, very serious.
And tragically, those efforts weren't enough.
No. The transcript confirms the adult female passenger died from her injuries later that same night.
Just devastating. And the children.
They were treated, checked out at the hospital, and then released to family members.
So the driver survived the crash he caused. And then came the legal process. Who was he identified as?
He was identified as Augustine Antonio Tompkins.
Okay. And the charges, given everything that happened?
They were extensive, as you'd expect. Aggravated homicide by a vehicle because his girlfriend died. Aggravated vehicular assault, failure to comply with a police order that's for fleeing, DUI driving under the influence, and, significantly, child endangerment, multiple counts.
Right, the children in the car. The commentary touched on that, didn't it? The child endangerment in Ohio.
Yeah, John mentioned that in Ohio, if you're DUI with kids in the car, it can become a felony charge, especially if a child gets hurt or if the driver has prior DUI convictions. So, very serious charges.
And this all happened where and when?
This was in Solon, Ohio, back on July 1st, 2022.
Okay. And the case moved relatively quickly, it seems.
It did. By November of that same year, 2022, Augustine Tompkins pleaded guilty.
To all charges.
Yes, guilty plea to everything in the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas.
The transcript includes part of his statement at sentencing. What do you say? Did he express remorse then?
He did. There are excerpts where he says he wishes he could take it all back, that he knows he's responsible for what happened. He also mentioned his concern for his children.
How does that square with the reports of his hostility right after the crash? It feels like a stark contrast.
It really does. It presents a complicated picture. You have the apparent lack of remorse at the scene, described by the officers and the commentator, versus the statement of regret later on in court.
Yeah. It makes you wonder about the timing, the sincerity. Or maybe the full weight of it just hadn't hit him yet at the scene. Or maybe it took the court setting.
It's impossible to know for sure what was going through his head. But it certainly raises questions. Perhaps the reality, the permanence of the consequences truly sank in between the crash and the sentencing. The legal system has to weigh those statements, of course.
So what was the final sentence for Augustine Tompkins?
He received 5 years in prison. After that, several years of probation. His release is projected for late 2027. And importantly, a lifetime suspension of his driver's license.
5 years for a life lost, children losing their mother. The commentator, John, had some thoughts on that.
He did. He basically said what many people probably feel, that no amount of prison time can really make up for the death, for the trauma the children will carry. He emphasized how utterly preventable the whole thing was.
Absolutely preventable.
Yeah.
Looking back at this whole sequence, it's just staggering how quickly it escalated. From a traffic stop for erratic driving
to a fatal pursuit and crash. It really underscores the impact of individual choices. His decision to flee, especially while impaired, especially with his family in the car, it had immediate catastrophic results.
It's a terrible illustration of the dangers of DUI, the dangers of fleeing police. The legal consequences were severe, but
the human cost is the real tragedy here, isn't it?
without a doubt, a woman lost her life. 2 children have lost their mother. Their lives forever changed by what happened that night, by their father's actions.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
It does. And maybe that's the final thought for our listeners today. When you reflect on this chain of events, this awful story, what stands out most to you? Is it the choices made, the rapid escalation, the final terrible outcome?
What does this tell us about the kinds of situations officers can face seemingly out of nowhere, and just how fragile life can be in these encounters?
Something to consider. The ripple effects of one decision, spreading outwards, causing so much harm. A truly sobering account.